This is Dolynny TV. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel on a fine Sunday afternoon. As you know what, Southern Alberta's looking beautiful this morning. Haven't left the house. Nice, lazy Sunday morning. But what I did finally get is some news on that Edmonton Oilers Kelowna trip, and that news is a look about 40 minutes ago at what the defense is lining up. And I mean, why you had a comment earlier today talking about looking at Ethan Baer. What I figure I should do is probably as a whole look at the defensive situation for the Edmonton Oilers, because we have 11 guys in camp. You've got Klefbom, Persson, Nurse, Lagesson, Russell, Benning, Manning, Bouchard, Lagesson, Baer, Day. Day's not skating in Kelowna today, nor is Kyler Yamamoto. But what we need to do about this Edmonton Oilers team, based on what I'm seeing here, is the simple fact that I think we almost have our defense figured out, barring one of these guys that's in those bottom two pairs doing something incredible, right? And when you're looking at it, obviously, Brandon Manning right now, guys, the scary part about this, for me personally, I all summer long banging on my desk saying, hey, we damn well got to trade Brandon Manning for a 7th round pick and get him gone. Well, now all of a sudden, in the matter of 10 days, Brandon Manning's worked himself right back into the conversation as the perfect 7th defenseman. And that just astounds me. I don't know how, if you're looking to correct the problems of old with Peter Chiarelli's Edmonton Oilers, why you wouldn't have traded Brandon Manning. I know, yes, the simple answer is no interest, but there's got to be some kind of interest for a 7th round pick when you're giving away a 7th defenseman, right? Yes, the cap hits an issue. I understand it 100%. But Holland traded Lucic for Neal, so let's be serious there, right? Lagesson, Baer, that's the other pairing. So you've got Manning, Bouchard, and Lagesson, Baer practicing. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? You look at that top 6. There is not a single change in that top 6 outside of Persson. And if you keep Manning as the 7th defenseman going into the season, there's only one change out of 7 defenders on our blue line from last year. And to a lot of your guys' points, that sounds scary. That sounds risky, because last year the defense was really bad. Well, yeah, right. Does Joel Persson really improved things that much that all of a sudden we're that much better of a team, especially when you've already seen Koskinen still glove hand, positioning weak, and then you've got Mike Smith who hasn't played a preseason game yet, and we're not that much sold that up front's going to be 100 times better. But even if you score 8 goals a game, if you're giving up 6, you're still going to lose a majority of games, right? You can't count on scoring 8 every game, but you can count on giving up a lot of goals per game, if you follow the theory. So what I really look at in this lineup for the Oilers defensively, when it goes Klefbom, Persson, Nurse, Lagesson, Russell, Benning, and then you've got the Manning, Bouchard, and Lagesson, Baer pairings, is Manning is kind of that favorite guy to make the 7th defenseman role. But then you've got Evan Bouchard, who I think he's got all of next week to sit there and kind of think, I've got a shot. I'm still here. I've got a shot. And for Evan Bouchard, that means he's got to go out there and show that poise. He's got to go out there and score some points. And he's got to go out there and do some damage against these teams. Arizona should be a good team to do some damage against, especially if they play Phil Kessel. He'll be able to show off his defensive side of the game if he gets that assignment at all. So there's a couple of spots where Evan Bouchard could really go out and earn himself a job on this team. Problem is, that knocks out somebody, and the question becomes, are you going to pay Matt Benning $1.9 million to be your 7th defenseman? Well, if you're paying Brandon Manning $2.25, I guess you could. But if Matt Benning really impresses you the rest of the way through camp, are you going to pay Chris Russell $4 million to be your 7th defenseman? I goddamn hope not. Well, suddenly there we go. Suddenly we get into those trade discussions, right? When you talk about Winnipeg being as an opportunity to get some defensemen out of the system and stuff like that. Okay, I see where we're going. Chris Russell could definitely be a guy that ends up in Winnipeg kind of deal. Or Adam Larsson, or who knows. But as it sits, right now, guys, it's pretty simple what the defense looks like. But that's just the Brandon Manning situation. Now we've talked about Evan Bouchard already. William Lagesson, this is the cure-all end-all, right? I don't know what happens with Brandon Manning if you send him down to the minors, but if you end up with William Lagesson as your 7th defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers this year, I think very easily you're looking at somebody being traded again, right? If Lagesson makes his 7th defenseman, I think Bouchard very damn well makes this team as a bottom 6 defender. Well, suddenly, okay, Russell, Benning, Manning, somebody's got to go, and that's, again, to my point, who is it? And William Lagesson isn't going to be that guy that forces his way into the top 4 pairings or even in the bottom 6 most nights. He'll be that 7th defenseman, and that's kind of his role in this team going forward by the looks of it, unless things drastically change and he gets some NHL games and lights things on fire and bang, 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 the Oilers are winning teams, right? But for William Lagesson, he has a path as pretty much only a 7th defenseman. Now, Ethan Baer. This is the interesting one for us in Ethan Baer because, you know what, guys, there's no reason to play him as a 7th defenseman. There's absolutely no reason to do that. So as the Evan Bouchard scenario goes, Ethan Baer pretty much has to play himself into a top 6 role and force a trade or something. He has to force something, and that's going to be the interesting part for him. Because Ethan Baer is a guy who you saw him against Calgary, looked very good, got pucks on net, did everything exactly the way the defensemen under Dave Tippett are supposed to do. And, well, that bodes well, right? If you're going to impress the coach, especially after it's been a year, 2 training camps removed since your last NHL experience, for Ethan Baer, I'm sure he's chomping at the bit. And these next few preseason games, depending on what Evan Bouchard does, depending on what William Lagesson does, are going to be very interesting for Ethan Baer. In my reality of realities, I could very well see Ethan Baer being the last cut in camp. That's a hard go, but that's just kind of where I'm seeing him as a bubble. But again, William Lagesson doesn't make the team. They decide to not go with Manning. They decide to trade Russell. They decide to trade Benning. They decide to use Benning as a 7th defenseman. All of a sudden, if Evan Bouchard hasn't done what he needed to do, Ethan Baer is the guy on that bottom pairing with whoever's left on that bottom pairing. And for Ethan Baer, I think there's nothing better, right? There is absolutely nothing better for a guy who got his NHL experience 2 years ago at the end of the year, has a fantastic shutdown year in the minors, and let's not kid ourselves, guys. Ethan Baer can go out there and produce points as well. We saw it in his career games, and what I'll do right now, I'll just get this stat up here for you because a lot of you guys may not be familiar with what Ethan Baer did for the Oilers that, I think it was 11 games. It was 18 games for the Oilers. He had a goal and 4 points, so a goal and 3 assists. And for him, that's not a bad go. That's, you know what, not bad. But the problem is he faced the most uphill battle next to William Lagesson. William Lagesson's path is a lot more clear, whereas Ethan Baer is competing against Evan Bouchard, who's a 10th overall pick in an NHL entry draft, as opposed to Ethan Baer, who's very much so in the later rounds. So for the Oilers defense, like it looks like right now, we know what it's going to be. Clefbaum, Persson, Nurse, Larson, Russell, Benning, Manning. That seems to be the easy go-to combination. But then you've got 3 wild cards, let alone Logan Day, but I don't know what the story is there. You've got 3 wild cards that are very much so forcing the issue at camp and could definitely turn things on their head. Well, what happens? That's the question. We've got 3 games to go the rest of camp. And, well, it all comes down to, if everybody's still here, it all comes down to that Saturday game at Calgary, which I'm hoping to go to, and then we'll see what this Oilers roster looks like on September 29th, 30th, October 1st, heading into October 2nd. But the defense, I think, is becoming even more of a storyline than the offense, honestly, because now you've got such a complex way to do it the rest of the way through camp that there's a lot of questions to be asked. Your top 2 pairs are solidified. Your bottom 3 defenders are the question, and it can go any single way from here. Guys, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. What I want to hear is your thoughts down in the comments section down below right now. I'm going to head on out of here. I'll get your comments going throughout the day, and we will keep on chatting. I am gone.